Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is Cinem-Atticts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 294. We're covering movies that are coming out Friday, May 16th, 2025. We have a lot to cover this episode, but the movies we're covering for this specific week include A Breed Apart, Sister Midnight, The Old Woman and the Knife, Desert Dawn, and Bound. Eric Holmes, I'm joined. How are you doing, sir?
Really good, really good. Just finished interview with Paige Kennedy for A Breed Apart. You haven't heard it yet because I just sent it to you, but yeah, did a couple of those. And spoiler alert, A Breed Apart, this episode might get good marks from me. Not spoiler alert.
I think Eric Holmes selfishly just wants to talk about A Breed Apart for 40 minutes and then just we'll cut to Bruce Purkey.
You know what? I'm fine with that. I'm sorry with The Breed Apart, and then the whole back half of the episode will just be spoilers on The Breed Apart. And
oh, guess what? In CinemAddicts, me, Eric, and Bruce, we love to cover indie-driven movies, but this episode is specifically a Breed Apart episode. So you fellow indie movies, you can go F off this weekend. You're gone. What about that, Eric Holmes? They're off the table. Bound, goodbye. Desert Dawn, goodbye. What?
Actually, this is like last week, like movies we watched for this. So
it was tough.
Banger season is back. We'll say that.
Banger season is back. So CinemAddicts episode 294. This actual episode has a full endorsement with Eric Holmes. Before we get into the reviews, Eric, what have you been up to the last week? How have you been just in general?
So last night, we're recording this on Wednesday. So
Yes.
Thursday night, I worked at Tokki running karaoke. And usually Thursdays at Tokki are kind of like, it's either like me and 6 other people. So it's real laid back. And then other times, Sunday's usually the busy day. Thursday's kind of we might get a little rush, but for the most part, it's usually quiet.
Yeah.
Last night, it was packed. And every singer that came up on stage was like an elite level singer. I was just sitting back like mixing. I'm like, I don't know what the hell happened, but I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this.
Did a particular performance stand out for you, if you recall from I guess the previous evening?
There's a woman named Melissa. She shows up once in a while, and she's just amazing. She's like, her voice is like Whitney Houston level good.
Oh, okay.
And she did You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. That's like she didn't do that song all the time, but that's one of her regular songs she goes to.
Hard song to sing. Very hard song.
Oh, she just kills it. There's this guy Bobby showed up, and yeah, he was crushed. Like it's hard to single out one because like everyone that came up, like there was even this one woman. She comes up and she's to herself like, I don't know. There's all these good singers. How am I gonna do? And then she starts singing. I'm like, the hell were you worried about? Listen to you. You sound amazing.
Very good. When Eric is not cooking or being a gourmet cook or a cook, cooking steaks, fermenting peppers, he's also a DJ at Tokki. How do you spell Tokki again, just for clarification?
Tokki.
Tokki.
Means rabbit.
Okay, so Tokki, if you are around the Colorado Springs area, or maybe you can possibly find Eric Holmes and talk some movies with him, or maybe most importantly, at the state of mind he's in at the moment, you can talk music to him as well. So a little bit of music and movies. What else can they talk about with you over at Tokki when you're not busy? Yeah, doing at the DJ booth.
Talk about how awesome Greg sounds, his hair is, how beautiful he is.
Okay.
And then
we can talk about Bruce Purkey, how insightful his movie reviews are, even though he's chained up to the attic over the Cinem-Attic.
Yeah, I can show you the attic where Bruce lives. You can't look at him or touch him.
Is he still in that state of mind, Eric Holmes, where you're not allowed to look him directly in the eye, and then he growls at you or something?
I don't like to scare him. It's kind of like the animals at the zoo. You don't want to stare directly at them because it gets them all skittish.
There is a rumor that Bruce Purkey was actually one of the stunt dogs in A Breed Apart. Is that correct? Did you let him out of the? Oh, okay.
He was the main dog in A Breed Apart, the one with the spiky hair.
Oh, that is very scary. You should ask him those questions. Hopefully you got him at the junket. You can ask him about attacking the main tower in the movie. We'll get to that tower sequence possibly. And I will say this. I just peeked, Eric Holmes, at your interview with Paige Kennedy. After this recording of CinemAddicts, Eric and I will do a very quick spoiler, maybe a couple of minutes for our Patreon members. We'll release it a week later to one of our YouTube channels about the specific ending of A Breed Apart, because Eric Holmes was smart enough to actually ask Paige Kennedy a really interesting question at the end, which we will, I'm assuming that we can tag as far as spoilers go, right? So that's
yeah. And by the way, maybe cut the first couple seconds of that interview.
okay.
I said,
Okay.
because,
All right. We'll add that to the spoilers.
Yeah, because as soon as we started the interview, like before we started the interview, I was like, is it okay if we talk spoilers? And then we started going into it almost immediately. So probably have to cut that out and put that in with the spoilers.
Eric's doing an awesome job. He just interviewed Paige Kennedy, and last week he interviewed, I believe, the lead of Abeyta Part, Grace Carolyn Curry. So we're going to get to that in a second. We're not going to bury the lead. We're going to review Abeyta Part in a second. But let's get to our Patreon for this month. It's
we got there's like a ton on the Google Doc. There's a ton of movies listed here.
Okay, there's a ton of movies listed, Eric, and there's 31 specifically. Middle of May, we need to actually pick our 2 movies right now. Our assigned pick for our Patreon is actually Old Boy. Okay, that's because I still have not seen the original Old Boy. I've seen the Spike Lee version, and I remember Anderson Cowan several years back was still. Actually, I'm sure he's still angry at me that I still haven't seen Director Park. It's Director Park, right? It's who did Old Boy.
Chan-wook, yeah.
Oh, Park Chan-wook, yeah. Director Park Chan-wook. So I haven't seen that. I've only seen the Spike Lee version. And I would always kid Anderson, like, why do I need to see Director Park's version when I already saw Spike Lee's version? And it's nice. It was a nice memory with me and Anderson getting mad at me. So he never got as mad as me as much as he does Brian, but I'm glad that was a really pure angry moment from Anderson Cowan. So it's gonna be a good thing towards the end of the month. Me, Bruce, and Eric will be covering the original version of Old Boy. That said, for our Patreon picks, we have 2 movies coming straight from our Patreon members, as well as our CinemAddicts Facebook group members. Okay, so thank you ahead of time to our CinemAddicts community: Alex Clayton, Ken Cunningham, Matt Stillman, Ryan Smith, Peter Abeyta, Jeff Haruth, Chad Wilfong, Shannon Snook, David Wangberg, and Joseph Bridges. Eric Holmes, do you have any kind of randomizer right now with you, or do you want me to do the random? Because I have.
So I see 30 movies, and I got a 20-sided die, so I'll roll the die 3 times, and then we'll do it that way. We'll math it out.
All right.
So we got 9.
Okay.
Plus 1 is 10.
Okay.
Plus 14 is 24.
24? Is that our first pick? Okay, what is it, Eric?
24 divided by 3 is...
Good.
Shoot. I forgot how I was going to do this.
8. So 24 divided by 3 is 8, right? Okay. That's the number. Right. Yeah, 24 divided by 3 is 8, yes.
Okay, so Owning Mahoney.
Owning Mahoney. By the way, I did the junket for that years ago. I'm such an old man, but Owning Mahoney, hopefully that is a pick from Ryan Smith. Eric Holmes and Bruce have not seen it, I believe.
No, I did that wrong. 24
you did that wrong?
Divided by 24, but yeah, Owning Mahoney's fine. 24 divided by 2. Because I'd roll a 60 and then divided by 2 would be 30.
Oh, okay. Okay, so what was the correct?
I don't know the math that I'm doing.
Okay,
yeah, let's just do Owning Mahoney.
Okay, then let's do this. Fine. Okay, Owning Mahoney is the first one. Again, our assigned pick is Old Boy, so we're actually this is our 3rd movie. So let's add them up, Eric.
We got 11, that's
19.
We got 17.
36.
36
divided by
15, 36, so 15
to
18. So
18.
Tears of the Sun.
And I did that to the Monica Bellucci. I love Monica Bellucci. And of course, Bruce Willis, Tears of the Sun. I could be wrong. I believe that movie was directed by Antoine Fuqua. But Tears of the Sun is one of our Patreon picks. Also, Owning Mahoney is our other one. And then our assigned pick is Old Boy. Old Boy will be, you can listen to it on our on our regular CinemAddicts podcast feed. But then for Owning Mahoney and Tears of the Sun, that will be for our Patreon members, for our Patreon patrons.
22 Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
I know, right?
Paige Kennedy's in that, by the way.
Are you? No way.
Yeah. Briefly mentioned that in the interview, but Leprechaun Back to the Hood. Good stuff. You need to watch that regardless.
Leprechaun Back to the Hood. That is shout out to Chad Wilfong. That was one of his picks. But again, the pick from our pick is Tears of the Sun. That's Chad Wilfong. Thank you for that. And then thank you, Ryan Smith, for your pick of Owning Mahoney. So those are 2 picks along with, yes, Old Boy. I will finally, after all these years, get to see Old Boy. And yeah, for a $5 catch-all, you can become a CinemAddicts patron. That's a great way to support me, Bruce, and Eric, and even Anderson Cowan here over at the CinemAddicts community. And we also do early access spoilers. If you don't have $5 a month, again, as long as you listen to us and, I don't know, just continue to support Cinematics. We appreciate however you support us. Now, for the spoilers for A Breed Apart, even though we're going to put that early up for our Patreon members, they get it a week early. You guys, Cinematics non-Patreon members, you still get the spoiler stuff, and we'll release it a week later. So don't worry, A Breed Apart, you will get full coverage a week later. So Eric Holmes, what do you want? You want to start off with A Breed Apart first? Let me start off with the plot summary, if you'll indulge me. Quote, when Violet accepts an invitation to a private island with some of the world's most famous social influencers, she expects a weekend of unrivaled viral opportunity. She becomes part of their horrific reality show when the guests are pitted against each other to capture the island's legendary man-eating dogs before they become victims of these monstrous canines. The aforementioned Violet is played by Grace Carolyn Curry, who Eric interviewed last week. She is the lead as Violet. Also, Virginia Gardner, who co-starred with Grace Carolyn Curry in the 2022 film Fall. Very good movie. They're back. It's a reunion for both of them. And Virginia Gardner has a meaty role in this as well. For those of you who are a fan of Heroes or just a fan of Hayden Panettiere, she is also in A Breed Apart. And I think here's the thing. When you get someone who is a popular name like Hayden Panettiere in an indie-driven movie like A Breed Apart, you think it's going to be stunt casting. She'll be in it for a couple minutes. I will tell you, this is not stunt casting. She actually has a pretty good role in A Breed Apart. This movie is in theaters, digital, and on demand May 16th. I should have put the name of the directors. I think they're called the First Brothers or something like
Griff First and Nathan First. They've done like I know they did I Am Omega.
Okay.
The I Am Legend, but it's not I Am Legend, but that, and I don't think they did Sharknado, but they do those kind of movies, I think.
Okay. I will say this.
Ghost Shark, Arachnoquake, Swamp Shark, Lake Placid 3. Yeah.
All right. So Bruce Purkey, he will have
they did Universal Soldiers. There you go.
Oh, that's very cool. So Bruce Purkey will have his A Breed Apart review in a few moments over at the Cinem-Attic. You can listen to what he has to say about A Breed Apart. But before we get to Eric's review, let me just say this. When you watch this movie, don't take it too seriously. Turn your brain off.
Take it very seriously. Take it the most seriously you've ever taken any movie ever.
We'll get to your take in a second. Very good, Eric. And number two, please, the first 10, 15 minutes, they're annoying because it's intentionally annoying because these are social media influencers. You get a setup of
the first time. The dog attack scene?
No, when you're introduced to social influencers, because they're all about Instagram and TikTok, so you get that social media.
I thought you were talking about like the opening where that part was cool. Awesome.
That part, no, I stand corrected. The opening part of A Breed Apart is very awesome because it's a flashback sequence on the island where the dogs are. It has Hayden Panettiere, and you get to see a really cool setup, but then it flashes in a couple minutes later or a minute later into an introduction to these social media influencers. And they're all pretty much, for the most part, really annoying, but they're intended to be annoying. So get past the whole getting to know you part. And once Eric mentioned man-eating dogs, once that stuff kicks in, the cliche is it's a full-on ride that I thoroughly enjoyed. Eric Holmes, take it away. Your review of A Breed Apart.
The cool thing about it, and as we already mentioned, the opening was just freaking awesome. It was just like right away, bam, you're into like dogs just attacking people. And then now this is the movie where, okay, we're done with that. Now we're going to go to the boring stuff. Not really. Like they go back to the setup, and yeah, there's supposed to be social media influencers, and I never really found them annoying. This is what it is. It was kind of like almost a Midnight Madness sort of thing, where a bunch of people gets together and there's this quirky guy coming out. Okay, here's my plan of what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't last long because we get right back into the dog carnage almost immediately. So it wasn't the thing where we're gonna have a cool opening, cut to someone waking up, turn their alarm clock off, do 20 minutes of nothing until we finally get back to the movie. The Breed Apart, just like it pauses a bit for setup and then just goes right back into that action and carnage you're here for.
And Eric, it's unrelenting. I think that's a good thing. It's unforgiving, unrelenting, and it's funny.
Yeah. I think probably one of the funniest parts is like it's normally like a movie you would knock for the special effects. There's parts with the dogs that look like obviously fake.
Sure.
But I don't know. It feels like they use that to the movie's advantage. Kind of like in like a Toon-Assisted Driving Cat, when he drives off the road, and it's an obvious cutaway to something that's completely different, but that's kind of part of the comedy, is like the sort of the bad edit or the bad, like that's clearly not the same thing. Like the dogs at times look fake, but I think that kind of adds to the kind of charm and comedy. And
yeah, you can distance yourself from the whole quote unquote reality, because they look a little bit that way.
Yeah, like when you see a dog that's like hanging on the side of a boat, for example, and the dog's like stiff, and it looks like, I don't even think that's animated. It looks like a Photoshop picture on the side of it. But at the same time, they also have a bunch of like cool blood effects and gore effects and whatnot. So it's kind of like a mixture of both. It's almost like they have bits of the movie where the effects look good. So when they have the bad effects in there, it's like them saying, look, we know what we're doing here. This isn't a bad effect because we're incompetent, because here's another effect that actually looks good. Like, we know what we're doing. This is meant for like cheese factor, camp factor, like intentionally.
And let's also mention that for something like a man-eating canine movie like A Breed Apart, a lesser talented filmmaker or filmmakers could have just made it a very simple, static, just dogs attacking humans and humans trying away. But the way some of these action sequences are mounted are really well done. I'm pretty ambitious. There's a scene by a tower, a Wi-Fi tower, that we're not going to get too much into it, but it's a really good action spectacle. There is a driving sequence with a Jeep that is very well done. And they use the First Brothers, Eric. They use, I think they shot in Guatemala. I think Grace Carolyn Curry was mentioning that.
Probably.
They use the island to really full effect, meaning there are some really action sequences that do not just stay in one specific locale. They use seemingly every inch of that island to good effect.
Yeah. And also, so like the Sharknado movies, and I don't know if any of the ones I've seen I don't think any of the ones I've seen, the only ones I've seen by the firstesses was I Am Omega. I didn't really love that. It was fine, but what I don't like about the Sharknado movies is the movies, at least the ones I've seen, are like bad, and the whole joke is, look, we're a bad movie, but they're also boring. Like this one gets like intentionally cheesy, but it's also like funny, and the action scenes are also cool, and the blood and the attacks are gross to look at or fun to look at. And so it's not just, look at us, we're a bad movie. It's like they lean into some of the B movie kind of tropes and ideas and lean on that for comedy, but it's not just that. Like, it's still trying to be an entertaining movie, and I think it succeeds in that as well.
I was surprised at how much I enjoyed A Breed Apart. I think, Eric, will some people be offended, man-eating dogs, or should they, people who love dogs? I was thinking maybe Bruce, he loves dogs so much. I'm not going to say what he said about this movie, but I don't find it offensive. I just found it to be a fun ride, and it didn't take itself too seriously, which
This movie will do to dogs what Jaws did to sharks. For decades after A Breed Apart, people will be side-eyeing their little pets going, I don't know about you, Schwarzy. I'm not going to turn my back on you too much.
Okay, so Eric and
No, this movie is just completely ridiculous and intentionally, and it's just going. This is playing in theater. I wish I saw this in theaters. I hope it's playing near me, because I would love to see this like with a packed crowd. This movie has Midnight Movie written all over it. It's that kind of thing.
And I agree. It's theaters, digital, and on demand May 16th. And what else can we say? It's a fun romp, and stay for the end credits. If you see this movie, do not stop when it cuts to black or whatever, fade to black. Wait for the end credits, because the end credits are fun to watch.
Well,
so again,
the end credits are like behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a tag just before the credits go that I didn't see coming, and I'll talk about that later. But
we'll talk about that later. Again, theaters, digital, and on demand May 16th. My rating for A Breed Apart, 4 stars for me. And what about you, Eric Holmes?
Initially, I was going to go 3-star banger, and I want to go 6.9. I had so much fun with this. But this is the kind of movie where 3-star banger was invented for. So I think I got to go with that.
Okay.
But
cool.
my heart kind of wants me to go 6.9 on this. But we'll officially go 3-star banger.
Okay, 3-star banger.
I'm pretty sure banger 6.9 stars are interchangeable at this point anyway.
Okay, cool. 3-star banger for Eric Holmes. Definitely highest. In many ways, 3-star banger is a very high recommendation, the highest for Eric Holmes. Easy clarification for that. We haven't used a 3-star banger in a while. And again, I gave A Breed Apart 4 stars. Listen later in the episode to hear what Bruce Purkey has to say about A Breed Apart. And later in the week, we will have Eric Holmes' interview with Paige Kennedy and Grace Carolyn Curry for A Breed Apart as well on the CinemAddicts podcast feed. Eric Holmes, do you want me to go next for the movie I saw, or do you want to go next? You want to take a siesta? Your call.
You know what? We got Bound next. Let's do Bound.
Okay, look, here's the thing with Bound. This is one out of all of the movies this week. I wanted to see Bound. I just wasn't able to watch it in time. Currently, as of this recording, it has 91% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It was released in 2023. It says that on IMDb. Eric Holmes checked it out.
Was it though?
Was it though?
Really?
Was it really though? Like Eric says, because it hits New York and LA May 16th this Friday, and it's also available on VOD this Friday. So technically 2023, but this is ultimately a new movie. Bound, it centers, quote, to escape her drug-dealing stepfather, a young artist flees to New York City with only her pet flying squirrel. Eric, you gotta
like a sugar glider.
Okay.
Like a little cute little tiny squirrel looking thing.
That's weird. After successfully reinventing herself with the help of some, quote, found family, she returns home to confront her dark past in order to be free. I read a bunch of reviews on Bound. This movie, by the way, is written and directed by Isaac Hirotsu Wook. It stars Ramin Karimlu, Jessica Pimentel, Alexandra Faye Sedegian, Bryant Carroll, Puya Museni, and Jay Alexander in his film debut as Bandit the Flying Squirrel. Eric Holmes, this seems like an indie drama through and through. What got me really excited is got some really good reviews by a bunch of critics. Right? What do you think of Bound?
That makes sense. This has like a Catch the Fair one or Blue Ruin. It's got that feel to it.
That's high. That's a high comparison, Eric.
Yeah, and this one lives up to it, I think. The only thing I don't like about this movie is the title, because look up Bound, and first of all, the Wachowskis is going to be the first one that pops up, but there's 100 movies called Bound. So
sure.
There ends my complaints on this movie.
No.
Yeah, this one's, I guess the second one's not really a complaint, it's the point, but this movie was like stressful to watch, and just it gets fun and heartwarming at times, but a lot of the times I'm just like pulling my hair out, just going, what the hell? Basically, so it starts off with the main character. She basically shoots her stepdad, not like kills him, but grazes him, like shoots him enough that does a little bit of damage, and then just holds a gun on him until he leaves the house. And then he leaves the house, and she goes to her mom, and she's lay down in the bed with her mom. It's all right, it's done, it's over. And then the next day, her and her mom are like talking, and then she hands the mom the keys, and then she's, you can never give these to him. She's like, well, so he's out of her life now. And then so you think everything's going to be fine, and almost immediately, stepdad comes back. She's looking through the window, and she watches her mom hand the stepdad the keys, and then she's, screw this, I'm out. And then so she goes to, I think she's in New York, and then just basically becomes homeless and just kind of wandering the streets, like figuring out how to survive, and meet some friends along the way that become characters that we come to know throughout the rest of the movie.
Were they interesting characters as opposed to tropes or symbols of things?
They're I suppose you could stretch and pull a couple tropes out of some of them, but there are more characters in there are tropes, I think.
Good. Yeah.
But one of the things you learn with other characters, because like she'll meet some people and get in like a situation where it seems dicey, and then come to find out like the people just accept her anyway. They're like, it's whatever, who cares? And then you come to find out that all these other characters that she runs into have their own sort of trauma and their own history and backgrounds and whatever. So of course we're going to accept you. We're not going to shun you because of that, because you don't know our story. And when you hear our story, you're going to figure out, oh, okay, yeah, you went through some crap too.
This sounds like a very heavy movie, Eric.
So eventually she tries to go back to her home to get her mom out of there. And because like now her, like, I think previously that's how she was saying, I think it's heroin, but I'm not 100% sure. There's some there's definitely some addiction going on. And that's what's keeping her with the stepdad. And then there's a bunch of other kind of interesting family dynamic stuff that kind of gets brought up later. You assume that's what's going on, but you don't know for sure until then. And it ends in a strange way. I won't say what it is, but like the stepdad and his drinking buddy are definitely like the villains of the movie, but they go in a strange direction. Because this is less about good guys versus bad guys and more about trauma and addiction and how that can affect relationships and just your personal lives just in general.
Was that a better choice, creative choice, you think?
Yeah, by a lot. And I think they knocked that out of the park, that whole idea of, because this does a thing where like once the movie ends, it comes up with the title of blah, blah, blah. Many families are affected by addiction, call suicide hotline and this and that. And normally in a movie, that would be kind of like a little ham-fisted. I appreciate that you're putting the 800 number out there and everything, but it's not really earned. In this case, it is, because that's like a strong theme throughout the movie. So like when they come up with that title, it doesn't come off as cheesy or like, where the hell did this come from? It's, yeah, I see that, because that was kind of like an underlying theme throughout the entire movie. But this was just really well done. I would say much something like Snow Angels. Don't really want to watch Snow Angels again, but it's an awesome movie. That's where I'm at with Bound. Although I think with the characters and some of the stuff in this movie, like I would see this again. I'm not dying to see this movie again, because you got to be like mentally prepared for something like this, because it gets.
Were you mentally prepared when you started?
No, but I went there anyway. But see, that's why movies like A Breed Apart exist. You watch Bound, you get done with it, it's like, oh, dude, that was heavy as hell. But in A Breed Apart, oh, killer dogs, cool. I can relax.
Okay, so then in layman's terms, people want to say, Eric, I don't want to see a heavy movie. Why should I see Bound? Just the way it's executed as a drama. I'm assuming the way.
And even like comparing it to something like Blue Ruin, it's definitely dark, but for some reason it's not as heavy as this. Because I could watch Blue Ruin again. Catch the Fair one, I could watch that one again. This one, I think, since it leans into the themes as hard as it does, this one's less fun, but it's just as good, I think.
That's amazing. Very good review, Eric Holmes. Your rating on Bound, which again, May 16th.
This one's 6.9. This is a great movie. This would qualify as a great movie I probably never want to see again, but I probably will.
Okay, 6.9 stars for Bound from Eric Holmes. Again, New York and Los Angeles, May 16th. But the good thing is, day and date on May 16th, you can also rent Bound on VOD. Might be the best way to go as well if you're not in New York or LA. Check out Eric. You just listen to Eric Holmes' interview, and
this one does not have midnight movie energy to it.
No midnight movie energy, but very good dramatic energy to it.
Yes.
So yeah, we will leave a link where you can rent or purchase this on our show notes and support Cinematics if you want to, or just pick up those threads that Eric is laying down and follow that thread and go possibly give Bound a shot and tell us what you think of that movie. Next up is a film called Desert Dawn. Quote, a newly appointed small-town sheriff, played by Kellen Lutz, and his reluctant deputy, played by Kamp find themselves in a web of lies and corruption when the murder of a mysterious woman leads them to a dangerous conspiracy involving shady businessmen and the cartel. The movie's directed by Marty Murray. One of the co-writers of Desert Dawn is Chad Law. Eric Holmes and I know Chad Law very well because he's a screenwriter who just writes a lot of these type of movies. His credits are all over the place on IMDb. I think he has at least over 30 writing credits. So, yeah, Desert Dawn. When you think Kellen Lutz, Kamp, they're reuniting years later after their work together on Twilight, and you're thinking it's going to be a action-packed type of action thriller, and to a point it is. The third act, there is a lot of gunplay and action, but most of it is this small-town sheriff, played by Kellen Lutz. He returns back to his home in New Mexico, and he's trying to figure out why is he coming back home after all these years. And he's a new sheriff in town. His friend from back in the day, again played by Kamp, he's the deputy. So obviously there must be some hard feelings that his friend from years ago is not the sheriff, and he just waltzes in. The small town sheriff, again played by Kellen Lutz, he just waltzes in from California, from a stint in California, to become the sheriff of this New Mexico town. Problem is, they have to work together to figure out this murder of this woman who is currently missing, and there's also a man in an SUV who had his brains basically blown out. He was killed in a car as well. So both of them try to figure out who committed these murders, and eventually these murders lead to a cartel, a possible drug conspiracy. Who knows? Maybe some of the police officers might be corrupt. Bottom line is, Desert Dawn is not action-packed. What it is, though, is Eric, do you ever, on a meal level, what are they called? I forgot. Calzone? You know those calzones, right? When you have a meatball in it?
Yeah, it's like a pizza cheese. Taco.
Like a pizza taco, but sometimes calzones can be really overstuffed with just whatever in it. And the thing about Desert Dawn, and this is why some people may not like this movie, is there's a lot of plot stuff in this. It's an overstuffed
I'd say we're talking about. It's like a James Bond movie or something, or like even Mission Impossible. It's like too much plot. I'm lost.
Too much plot.
Just wait for the next action thing to come up.
Even a couple of the henchmen, they get their own little moment in this movie. There's just a lot of stuff stuffed into this calzone. I like calzones. Sometimes when they're overstuffed for me, they work. And most of Desert Dawn works as a mystery, because you're trying to figure out, why is this sheriff trying to figure out, okay, he's doing his job, he's trying to figure out this murder, but does he have some kind of connection to this murder? There's a couple of things he does during the investigations when you're thinking, is he corrupt? What's going on here? Also, at the beginning of the movie, as he's unpacking his stuff into his new office, you see a picture of a young girl, and you're thinking, and you can tell he is very close to this young girl, and you're assuming the way he's looking at the picture, what happened to her? Has she passed away? Is she missing? You don't get to know what happens until towards maybe 30 to 40% into the narrative. So I'm not going to say what happens to this girl, but all of this stuff ties in to this New Mexico town, and there's a lot of characters, and I ended up really enjoying Desert Dawn as a solid calzone action thriller experience. And the fact that this movie is a lot more of, you're trying to piece the puzzles together and trying to figure out who committed the murder, who's playing who. I like the reveal at the end, even though it got me. The end got me. I did not guess correctly. Okay. Directed by Marty Murray. Also, the ending sequence when there is the stereotypical, that is, standoff, where the good guys and bad guys get together and they kill each other, right? They try to kill each other. It's really well done, okay? And it's set in a building, and the way it's shot and executed is very well done within this indie-driven film. So Desert Dawn for me is a solid recommend. In theaters, digital, and on demand, May 16th. This is one of the things is, if you like these movies that Eric and I like, these Saban films type of movies, you're going to enjoy Desert Dawn. 3.5 out of 5 stars for me. And that is my thoughts on Desert Dawn. If you like these movies like me and Eric, give it a shot and tell us what you think of Desert Dawn. Finally, we get to another movie that I did not get to see. The Old Woman and the Knife, and it centers on an aging assassin named Hornclaw. She is mentoring a reckless rookie named Bullfight, and their bond deepens. But the problem is they're part of this underworld that is understandably evil. They're both assassins. Hornclaw eventually finds out that someone, maybe the organization, or just basically someone, wants her dead. And she is thrust, quote, into a deadly game of deception. The Old Woman and the Knife hits theaters May 16th from Wellgo USA Entertainment. Eric Holmes, you were able to see this under the gun. You made it. You saw a lot of movies this week. Congrats on that. What are your thoughts on The Old Woman and the Knife?
Yeah, this is probably the worst movie I saw this week, but it's still really good.
Good.
That's not saying this movie sucks. It's just saying this is how good this week's been. But this is, I think I might be a little, get some of the plot stuff wrong, because it starts off with starts telling one story and then cuts to something completely different and then cuts to something completely different.
So that's confusing. That's confusing. No.
It is. But then as the movie goes on, things start coming together. So I would say if you're watching this, if you're basic like me, you might get lost pretty early on. just stick with it. It all finally gels together. But so if I got it right, it starts off with Hornclaw is not a little girl, but she's much younger than she is currently. And gets attacked by this. She's like in a kitchen, or she's at work. And then there's like this military guy that comes in, and he like attacks her, like sexually attacks her and physically attacks her. And another guy, Ryu, comes in and stops it. And then it cuts to Hornclaw as an old woman. And there's some guy on a subway, and he's picking on some pregnant woman just sitting on the subway trying to mind her business. And this guy's basically just verbally being an a-hole, and he's basically being threatening. And Hornclaw's got like this, it's called Old Woman and the Knife. And she eventually has a knife in the movie, but her main weapon is like this, like a hairpin with a little needle on the tip of it. I think of the Gom Jabbar in Dune, they put on the neck. It's like a big version of that. Anyway, she goes up to the guy and just sticks him on the side as everyone's about to leave the subway. And then she leaves, and the guy's mouth starts foaming up, and he drops to the ground.
Ooh.
And then, so you find out that she's like an assassin, and it was unclear she seemed like a vigilante, but the assassin company that she works for is almost like a vigilante company. Think of, instead of Batman going out on his own fighting crime, it's this assassin that like takes in certain cases doing this, or so-and-so did this, and then like, all right, Hornclaw, you're the good one. You go out there. Like, she's like that guy that you go to like when you need something done. Like, you need someone dead. It's not like this person owes me money, kill them. It's this person beat up my friend. This person raped a kid. This person did something bad. That's the kind of people they're going to assassinate. And then there's this other younger guy, and he's doing his own thing. And this is where I'm confused, because I don't know if he works for that same company or if he's independent of that, trying to get on the company. That part I was confused about and still am. But anyway, him and Hornclaw go head to head a little bit, or I would say not head to head. They butt heads a lot throughout the movie. And then, but there's something about them. There's something about them in their past that you find out much later in the movie, and that I can't give away. And it's also not exactly what you think. So as it becomes like this assassination kind of thriller thing, there's a bunch of flashbacks, and it's definitely got the family drama bits to it. And it's got, I wouldn't say this is as good as Saga Soup, but it's got that kind of feel to it.
Ooh, okay.
Much more of that than like a John Wick. Although the action scenes in this, when there are some, are really good. I gotta look up her name. Lee Hae-hyung, who played Hornclaw. I wouldn't call her frail, but she's got gray hair, and she's smaller build. But like when she's going in a room and kicking ass, like, I'm buying it. I think a lot of that is because when they have those scenes, they're not chopping the fight scenes to death because she can't fight, so you have to make it look like she can by editing it. They don't do that. There's not like one long one-er takes, but there's long enough takes that you get to see her kind of get in there and fight and kick some butt to where you're like, oh yeah, she can throw down. Like, when she steps in and someone's afraid of her, I'm buying that, and I'm afraid of her too. Like, I would not want to mess with Hornclaw.
Wow.
This also has, we spoke of like Old Boy earlier. This has like heavy Lady Vengeance vibes. And again, not as good as Lady Vengeance, but still pretty good. Yeah, this is like definitely worth watching. If you dig Lady Vengeance, definitely watch this. If you like want a bit of Sagasu in with your Lady Vengeance, then definitely watch this. But The Old Woman with the Knife is pretty good. I would say the only main knock on it, and this is probably a me problem, might not be a you problem if you go and watch this, but I was confused on some of it, especially early on, and still am. I'm confused of how some of the stuff lands towards the end, but I didn't care. I still enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay, what are you giving it? The Old Woman and the Knife, right?
Yes, between 3.5 and a 4. I think I'll go with a 4 just because I don't want Hornclaw to come kick my butt afterwards. So we'll go.
Eric Holmes, Old Woman and the Knife. So that is it for Cinematics. We had a whole bunch of interviews, reviews. Speaking of interviews, those interviews for A Breed Apart will be up later on the Cinematics podcast feed. Speaking of interviews, Eric, what is your work schedule like tomorrow? Are you crazy?
I got 2 more.
Oh,
I got another interview with the directors of A Breed Apart. So
what time is that? My God.
I don't know, probably like noon or something. But and then I'll be working at Skybox. So
Skybox. What time do you go to Skybox?
If you'll be in Colorado Springs tomorrow, come down to Skybox. Say hi.
What time does your shift start over at Skybox?
As for it'd be your time. It'd be 3:00.
3:00. I don't know if I can make this interview tomorrow, but we can talk about it off after we're doing the mini spoilers for A Breed Apart, because I know you have the interview with A Breed Apart director. But from 9 in the morning to 1 o'clock, there are some slots for an actor who you might want to interview. I'm going to tell you, you're going to guess what actor that we might have in our Cinematics universe. Okay. So we'll see. Okay. He started Miracle Mile. Okay. Any guesses yet?
Yes. And I can't remember his name now. Damn it.
Okay. He also starred in
the Gilbert from Revenge of the Nerds. It was in ER.
Oh,
Anthony Edwards.
Okay. That's a good. Okay. No, but that's a good guess. Don't look it up on IMDb yet. The other one is Streets of Fire. He was in
Michael Pare. Michael Pare wasn't in Miracle Mile.
This actor was in Streets of Fire. This actor was also in the Delta Force. So this actor was in Wildcats. This actor was again in the aforementioned Miracle Mile. I'm getting up there. This actor was also in The First Power. This actor was also in Free Willy. This actor was also in, you're going to get after this.
Oh,
yes. Oh,
Madigan.
No, this actor was also in Forrest Gump, and this actor was also in Heat. This actor was in Heat, in Forrest Gump, Streets of Fire, The First Power. I love The First Power with Lou Diamond Phillips. Michael T. Williamson. So we have an opportunity for Michael T. Williamson. So of course you remember Michael T. Williamson from Forrest Gump and Heat. It was, what is it, the Bubba Gump in that? Yeah. So
he was on Streets of Fire?
Yeah, I'm looking at his thing. He was in Streets of Fire. He was in Miracle Mile. He was in a whole bunch of stuff. Waiting to Exhale. He's a great. So we'll talk about that later after we're done with the cinematics. If not, I'll do it. It's no big deal, but I'm going to offer that to you. But before we go, folks.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's it. Final thoughts before we get to Bruce Purkey. Here it comes.
I'm going to have to look up Streets of Fire and see what Michael P. did on that, because I'm very, you started naming all those movies. I'm just pulling names out of my butt right now.
There was an actor, if you look up The First Power on IMDb, I forgot, I think his name is Jeff Kober, Kober. I think he was in The First Power. When I was a kid, I looked at that guy's face and I was scared. He was a very good character actor back in the day, Jeff Kober. I could be wrong. This is just this is an early 50-something guy just trying to remember people in movies. But
he it's got
which one?
Sort of Jeff Bridges, Eric Roberts vibe to him.
Oh, Kober. Yeah. Is that
Jeff
his name?
Kober?
Jeff Kober. When you looked at it on IMDb, right? You remember that face? Yeah, you remember that Jeff Kober.
I'm looking at him right now. But
not crazy. You remember
he's not scary.
When I was a kid, I was like, "What?" No, he was scary because in my teens, he was an intimidating force. I just wondered what other movies.
When I was a kid, any guy that had a long beard, I was like, "Oh, they're a monster."
I'm thinking maybe Key Luke from Kung Fu. Now we're done. I will interject for Eric Holmes. I know Eric Holmes covered a lot of movies this week. A Breed Apart. He has another interview tomorrow with the director. And go see A Breed Apart, Eric.
Oh, absolutely go see A Breed Apart. And pre-game before you go.
And if
get hammered. And this is when Snakes on a Plane came out. Everyone was like, Snakes on a Plane, this is going to be so much fun. And Snakes on a Plane was a pretty fun midnight movie. This is the movie that Snakes on the Plane was promising.
Wow. Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. So that is it for this week. Cinematics episode 294. Of course, here is Bruce Purkey over at the Cinem-Attic.
Welcome again to the Cinem-Attic, the attic of cinema. Once again, I have cracked the hatch, crept down from my attic abode, and made it into some little corner of Eric's place, and found some recording equipment and decided to talk about some movies for this week that I was allowed to see, some screeners. I also had 2 recommendations, but I don't know if I'm really talk about them because I didn't really like either of them that much. So I'll just say up front, that I was really disappointed with two A24 films that just recently made it on a digital, and that is Death of a Unicorn, not near as fun or as campy or as entertaining as I expected it to be, and Warfare, the newest Alex Garland joint. Also found it to be an empty, once again, absolutely partisan in any way war experience to go along with Civil War. So I hope it's not a new trend for him, because one of my favorite filmmakers of the last 10 years has not really done much for me in the last two movies he's made. So that's my quick mini opinions on Warfare and Death of a Unicorn. Now, this week I have three screeners that we're going to talk about. That is going to be Sister Midnight, The Old Woman with the Knife, and last, maybe least, maybe not least, A Breed Apart. And I just got to say up front, all three movies are at least a recommend from me. And all three movies have something kind of different to offer. So I would guess that at least one of these might be something for you to discover. So that's a good thing to know up front. All right, we're going to start with Sister Midnight, directed by Karan, because it doesn't look like Karen. It's like Karan Kandari. This is a movie from India. It's got two main characters. It's got quite a few characters, but the main character is Uma, played by Radhika Apte. And keep your eyes out for Radhika Apte, because boy, oh boy, she carries this movie. She has to carry this movie, and she does carry this movie. And I think she could be someone to watch. I could see her being snapped up pretty fast by the Hollywood system and finding her way into some movies you may not expect. And Gopal is played by Ashok Patak. And what is this movie? What is Sister Midnight? Now, I posted the movie poster for this on CinemAddicts in our Facebook group, which is a great group to get a part of if you are not part of Facebook group. CinemAddicts, it's a place that actually is not super toxic, and people love to talk about movies there, which is a point. And there's some really great people we've met there and that continue to come in there and contribute with suggestions every single day and discussions on various movies. Even when we disagree, it seems to be a very respectful place. So we'll just put that out there. I put up the poster, and it's obviously a play on the famous poster of Taxi Driver. But instead of Taxi Driver, he's standing there, there's that yellow border, and he's got the taxi behind him. Robert De Niro, of course, very famous shot. And in the shot for the poster of Sister Midnight, you've got our main character, Uma, and she's standing holding a mop, and it's nighttime, and behind her you see some goats and buildings and stuff, and you're just kind of, what is this movie? And that is the point. What is this movie? It's an odd movie, but a very interesting movie. First of all, if you're thinking of movies from India, you might have a very stereotype kind of view of what you're going to get. Singing and dancing and bright colors and lots of kind of goofy action and kind of a lot of things you expect in the common export from India that we tend to get, even though there's like hundreds and hundreds of different types of movies that come out of India. That's kind of the ones that you might expect, especially ones that might make it to America. This movie is a little more unique. First of all, some people have been commenting and saying, oh, it's got Wes Anderson vibes, and I can kind of see how that might happen, and I can see people like, oh, I'm out. Eric being one of them probably, and myself a lot of times too. But the filmmakers in this movie had actually said that they were more inspired by Buster Keaton than they were by Wes Anderson. Now, that really might make you go, what the heck is this movie? Buster Keaton. And once again, I don't think that's a thoroughly great comparison, because this is not a slapstick silent movie in any way. Basic story, or basic setup. Uma, at the very beginning of this movie, you see her on a train, and then you see her in a very small home with Gopal, her brand new husband, who you get to figure out pretty quickly has been part of a arranged marriage. This is modern times. She was in part of an arranged marriage. So you get the idea right away. She doesn't have a lot of connection with this guy and doesn't know him that well. And there's a lot of shots in the early parts of this movie of her kind of just staring at him and him staring at her, and very little conversation, a lot of frustration on her part, because you can see that you don't know anything about her past at all, other than she does not seem well-matched, well-suited for domestic life. Very quickly you get that. And like I said, she's very small. So she's on a very busy street. Their apartment, I guess you'd call it an apartment or home or whatever it is, on a very busy street. For example, when they open their front door, it literally just looks out on this bustling street. If you had this giant bustling street in India, in a city in India, not in the country, in a city, just bustling immediately outside of your front door, like no yard, no even post stamp yard, nothing. Just there it is, the street. And they're just a row of these kind of one room apartments, just the whole street's lined with them. And when I say one room, I mean, it's like maybe 20 feet by 20 feet. That's her whole world. So the first part of this movie is just her stifled in that environment. He leaves every day, goes to work, and she's in this apartment. It's supposed to be domestic, apparently. And you can just kind of see her almost, I guess that's the Buster Keaton side of it, right? Almost silently, as far as not talking to people very much. Although eventually she starts talking to a neighbor, a woman next door, who doesn't really take her under her wing. The neighbor's also a little bit short with her and frustrated with her, but she also identifies really quickly that Uma doesn't know the first thing about cooking or housekeeping or any of that stuff. She's just, and it's not like she's a spoiled princess. You don't get that feeling either. Once again, you don't know her background. You just get the feeling it's just not her. It's not her personality. It's like she is a very much more kind of, she's almost more of a brash personality, like a very direct personality, a very brusque personality. In fact, early on, she's swearing, and he gets really upset. Gopal gets really frustrated with her because she just swears and stuff. And you get the feeling he doesn't say it, but it's kind of like, well, this isn't very ladylike. That's a basic setup. And then this movie becomes really almost more of a character study of her trying to find her place in this new life and this new world. She's obviously not going to be able to spend the whole movie and her whole life just sitting in this house, waiting for him to come home, cooking eventually, housekeeping eventually, and just doing nothing. That's just not her. You could just, that's not her at all. And obviously maybe a commentary on the role of genders in Indian society and stuff like that. But it's not super dour. It's, for some people it might be super boring because plot-wise it's very simple. But character-wise I think it's very interesting. And what makes it interesting, I can't spoil certain things about this movie because there are some turns, but she has to find a way to carve out her own identity in this new life that she has. First of all, you probably get the feeling right out of the gate, like the way I'm talking about this, there isn't a lot of romance between these two. Now they may eventually work towards that, but at the beginning we're going to lay next to each other in this small bed in this tiny apartment, and it'll be able to build a barrier, but you get the feeling like, yep, we're not touching each other. We're stiff as a board. We don't know each other. This is it. We're just using this to sleep. You kind of get that vibe as well. They may or may not forge more as time goes on in this movie. Let's just say here is the big, how do I do this? Without giving it away, this movie takes some huge turns. First of all, let's say she finds an avocation, a job of sorts that gets her out of the house at night. And you saw a mop, so you might be able to figure out maybe a cleaner of some sort, building cleaner, helps with some kind of a cleaning crew. Let's just say she starts to have some other, at least something to do with her life when he's away and in the evenings when she has nothing to do. Because he's gone, it seems to be a lot, like just at all hours. And then it takes some really different turns. And I'm going to stay vague because I think the surprise of this movie is, I would say it's almost a 2-hour movie. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know. I don't watch the whole movie of her just being upset and unhappy with her just being stifled life. It definitely goes some different places. Once again, I can't tell you because if I tell you, it'll give away some things. But it takes some very drastic turns in tone and in the entire genre of what this movie is that I did not see coming. And when it started happening, because it doesn't happen like a blast, an immediate turn. There are some slow things that happen. You're like, wait, what? And then you start to ask questions like, wait, what's going on here exactly? She starts to get very sickly, some other thing. I'm just going to leave it at that. But when the turns start happening and there's certain music drops that start happening that seem very out of place in the movie and they mirror the very odd narrative and character turns that start to occur in this movie, I think people are going to either be in or totally out at that point, but I got more and more in as that went, as those changes started happening in the last half of this movie. Big, drastic changes. I was really down for it. There's some, I'm going to say, I guess this isn't a spoiler. There's some things that happen with stop motion, which I totally didn't see coming. Some people might find totally goofy and distracting. I found them awesome and weird and crazy and cool. And like I said, there's some music drops that are very discordant to what you might consider in a movie like this. And I think those worked really well as well. There's some just amazing character turns that she has. And it becomes an origin story of sorts. And I'm not going to say an origin of what, but it becomes an origin story of sorts for her. I think Sister Midnight is pretty darn fantastic. For me, this just really hit the spot as a unique and a really unusual, and talk about hidden gems. I think Sister Midnight could be one of those hidden gems. And if it gets the right eyeballs on it, this could get a lot of love as time goes on. I think it's going to be one of those movies that people discovers. So I'm going to go 4.5 stars for Sister Midnight. And once again, Radhika Apte, I don't know if I'm saying her name right. She is fantastic, just in general, but in this movie specifically. I haven't seen her in anything else, so I cannot vouch for her other work. I'm guessing she's probably done a bunch of other work, because if you're in the India film industry, you probably made like 10 movies a year or something. Anyway, on we go. Next movie is The Old Woman with the Knife. The Old Woman with the Knife, directed by Kyu-dong Min. And once again, this is a South Korean movie. You have two main characters, but you have a bunch of characters in here. But the two main characters are going to be, originally she gets called Nails, but then she becomes Hornclaw. Say, what kind of a name is this, Bruce? What is this? She goes by Hornclaw. She's Lee Hee-hyung, and that's the main actor. And then we've got also playing Bullfight. Once again, what are these names? Bullfight is played by Kim. This starts out with a little prologue in 1975, where you kind of get to discover how Nails got discovered, basically. And essentially you have this thing where this guy is going along, it's snowy, you see the young woman version of what becomes Hornclaw, and she's young, like probably late teens, early 20s, and she's stumbling across the street, and she has fallen in the snow, and she's being covered by the snow. Something's gone terribly wrong in her life. You don't know if she's escaped from somewhere or if she's just like out without a home. You don't know what the deal is. No story, really. But she gets discovered and picked up by the guy, taken back, taken into his house with him and his wife. And very quickly, you have a quick little scene where a U.S., I think it's a soldier, like once again, it's in the 70s, comes into their establishment, sees, her, quote, Nails, Hornclaw, sees her, and when he gets her alone, tries to assault her. And very quickly, she kills the guy. And you think the person who discovered her, when he finds her with this U.S. guy dead, would freak out or something, but no, he doesn't. And you find out really quickly that he has basically got a kind of an assassin ring that he essentially runs. They call it pest control. So in a similar vein to Dexter or something, but as like an assassin organization, they basically take jobs or do jobs that involve people for one reason or another who they deem should die because they're terrible people. And once again, there's a lot of problematic stuff there, but this isn't taking that kind of so seriously. It's not taking this as a very serious sociological issue. It's just that's the situation. And then you have her credits and you fast forward to the current day. She is now an older woman. She is almost over her prime as an assassin, which we just saw that movie recently, and I forget. It had the guy from Inglourious Bastards. I can't remember what the movie was called, where he was an older assassin, and it really just didn't work for me. But a similar idea, right? She's an older assassin in this situation, but she is revered. She is known as deadly. But because her edge is a little bit dulled, her hand isn't as steady as it used to be, there might be some question on whether they need to retire her. And retiring people in an assassin game could be dangerous to the assassin. It could be a John Wick situation where everyone's out to get you. But it doesn't play out that way. I thought it was going to play out that way. Oh, it was going to be her against her association, all of them trying to get her. Instead, it becomes a duel between old and young, because they bring in a new young guy, and that is the bullfight guy. And he is the stereotypical tropey, out of control, super brash, younger assassin who just he's cruel. He thinks does no wrong. He thinks he's invincible. And he also just is cocky, and he's also very good and very dangerous. He'll fly off the handle. He's uncontrollable a little bit, but for whatever reason, he wants to be part of their organization. She immediately doesn't have a liking to him, and he doesn't have a liking to her. And before you know it, after a series of events, he is essentially probably trying to take her down. And she knows it, and she is trying to both stay alive and protect this veterinarian family that she is essentially trying to protect this veterinarian and his family who helped her at one point. And because they helped her, the system there wants her to get rid of this guy because he knows her and he knows who she is. And the idea is that you don't want to leave any loose ends. You don't want to leave people knowing, about you. She, of course, for the reason she has, doesn't want to get rid of him. And the bullfight guy might be one of the people that's sent to both take her out and to take this veterinarian and his family out. So you've got some stakes there. So it becomes part, like I said, cat and mouse game, part kind of character study of aging assassin trying to come to terms with what she's doing and what it means to her, and does she want to kind of reform herself to some degree. It killed her to some degree. We'd had a few years ago too. This idea of coming to a point of realization of where you are in your life as an assassin. And then the other side of it, of course, is that the last job, or no more jobs, I'm going to get out of this game, that kind of a thing. And doesn't sound like enough. There's also a kind of a subtext of maybe there's more going on with this bullfight, young, crazy killer guy, than just he wants to be the new big wheel at this assassin game. Maybe there is a personal grudge going on that we don't know about at first that might come into play. Yes, because I'm asking that, that's probably true. All right. So how does this movie play? Like, where do I come down on this? First of all, I don't think this is the most crazy action-packed assassin type of movie. Like I said, it's not a John Wick movie, that's for sure. But it has its moments, and it has I have creatures in here making noises. It has moments where you definitely do get some set pieces and some violence and all that kind of stuff. You have to in this kind of movie. If you didn't get that, you'd be really like, what are we doing here? But it isn't going to be staged in these huge set pieces like you get in a John Wick movie. But that being said, all of the pieces that were here, I think worked pretty darn well, and I was pretty engaged with them all the way along. If there's one drawback I had to this movie, it almost felt like a movie where I was part of a series of movies, but I didn't have the other movies to access. So almost like there was more information around the edges that I didn't quite know that I would have made it even more full for me. And to some degree, I appreciate that because they didn't feel the need to over give me information or over explicate every single thing. But I also felt like sometimes, hey, am I in the middle of a series of movies and I've only seen the middle segment? Even that being said, though, I got it enough that it worked. And maybe I'm just missing a few things that I somehow should have caught when I was watching it. And that happens sometimes, especially in international movies where the translation may not be 100% giving us everything the way it would if you were speaking the native language. All that being said, I had a pretty darn good time with this. I enjoyed the main character a lot. Lee Hee-young. I kind of looked up her filmography and maybe I missed something, but I feel like I know her, but I couldn't quite place her. But both her and the actor playing Bullfight were really charismatic, and that's kind of what you want in a movie like this. And I found it a really solid movie. Solid, character-driven, kind of thriller, action-y assassin movie with a little meat on its bones. So I think that if you kind of like that brand of movie, you'll probably at least like it. You may want it to be more action if you really want it to be John Wick style, like I said. But if you're like me, a person who's not so much into the action genre, I think this gives you enough style and character points that it'll keep you engaged. So in that way, it might not be fully entertaining to both sides, but it might actually garner a little bit broader audience. Also, it's got a pretty darn striking poster and a great name. The Old Woman with the Knife. Okay, you're like, okay, what's up here? what's going on. I was going to originally go 3.5 stars. I think I'm going to go 4 stars. Looking back on this, I quite like this movie. I think this is a pretty solid watch. I think that, once again, this is a movie that if you don't catch it, because it probably isn't going to come to a lot of theaters, and it isn't absolutely required to see in a theater, I don't think. It's not that big. This is the kind of movie, if it comes onto a streamer, you might be really pleasantly surprised to discover it. And once you settle into it, you might really find yourself enjoying it. And that's going to be 4 stars for The Old Woman with the Knife. And then the last movie I was suggested very strongly by Greg and Eric that I really should check out this crazy movie they watched called A Breed Apart. Now, afterwards, they were apologizing and telling me, I'm sorry you hated it. But I didn't hate it. And we're going to talk about this movie. And they already have, I'm sure, at this point. And I don't even know what they've rated it. But I'm guessing I might rate it the same as one of them, but we'll see. A Breed Apart is directed by Griff and Nathan First. In fact, I think even it says the First Brothers movie or something like that at the beginning. And there's a bunch of actors in here. Hayden Panettiere's, I think, the only name actor I recognize, but I could be wrong. I didn't recognize them, and I didn't do a bunch of research, so that's bad on me. Maybe Eric and Greg have already cued you in on who all the actors are, but all you need to know is the setup in this movie. First of all, what will I say? Context. Sharknado. Sharknado is the context you need. Now, some people might take that as an insult or a selling point. It kind of depends on where you come down on those Sharknado kind of movies. I generally don't like these Sharktopus versus Octo Mom or whatever these movies are. They made a million of them. Basically, super low budget, super cheesy CGI. Usually they feel like real cash grab kind of movies. But the Sharknado movies themselves, even though they fit in a lot of those categories that I was just mentioning, the Sharknado movies themselves were quite a bit of fun. And part of what worked for them was that they knew what they were, but they also delivered on a real goofy level of entertainment. And they just pushed through the other side of the cheesiness to become, I don't know, just become like genuinely entertaining schlock, like well-made schlock, if that's a thing. And this movie does something similar because it doesn't have good special effects. It has a very terrible CGI, and it doesn't pretend to have good CGI. And the CGI, though it uses, I'm talking almost like Neil Breen level. If you use that as a reference point, for some people will get that point. Neil Breen will be like, oh, okay, what? It's not to the degree of silly seriousness of Neil Breen. I think that's the magic of Neil Breen, is that he does this kind of thing and he's serious about it. He thinks that he's doing something great and everyone knows it's not. These guys know they're not making something great, but they also are just trying to make something fun. This is going to be probably not a selling point for some people, but I would say if you took like the idea of kind of the feel of Club Dread and Neil Breen and Sharknado, and you stirred them all together, you might get A Breed Apart. So what is A Breed Apart? It starts out in the past with Hayden Panettiere's character filming this movie, A Breed Apart, about killer dogs or whatever. And while they're filming it on set and the dogs are wandering around, they're trying to gather up the dogs, the dog handlers. The dogs go into a cave nearby in this jungle in the place they're filming. And the dog gets bit by a bat. And they never say much about it other than the bat either made them rabid or it made them vampires. It made them evil. I don't know. Whatever it did, it made the dogs go crazy and they kill everybody at the beginning of the movie. And the way they kill people with these fake CGI dogs and the attacks are just so silly, so funny. It's quite something to see. And anyway, flash forward to current day, and you've got a bunch of influencers, and it's supposed to be a send-up of all these influencer types, kind of Mr. Beast level of influencers, if you know who Mr. Beast is. And they're all done very broadly, very cartoonishly. If you're looking for subtle satire of the social media landscape, you're not going to get it. This is like where they are super goofy, where one dude is, what is he, a farmer? They have Killer Queen and Big Farmer Jay, and all of them end up having skills that are useful for them later in the movie. For example, one of the women, I think it was Killer Queen, her shtick online is that she just makes a bunch of DIY stuff And of course, it makes her kind of MacGyver so that later on when they're fighting all the killer dogs, if they become, she can use her MacGyver-like skills to fight against them. But the basic concept is they're all brought to this island by a giant, what was he, a tech bro kind of a guy. He's basically Mr. Beast, essentially, who says, I brought all these big influencers and you're going to get all these views by coming to the island. And we're going to have this big thing where I don't even remember how it works exactly. The island has been left to these dogs ever since that production from years ago. And now the dogs are just roaming free on the island. And he's built this luxury house, Mr. Beast guy has, on the island. And when he gets all the influencers there, they're going to basically build like a Jurassic Park kind of thing on this island where they have some petting stations and all the dogs. Well, it makes no sense. It's goofy. Really, and the point of this movie is it doesn't mess a lot of time with that. I thought, oh, great, I'm going to spend all this time with these terrible characters, barely well acted. I'm going to see them on this island for 75 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes, we're going to have some cool, dumb monster stuff with dogs. No, this movie gets to it right away. There's the point early on where they're all like, these dogs look scary and they look mean. We don't like them. They're in the cages at that point. And Mr. Beast guy says, they're friendly. Let me go show you. And he puts his hands in there and there's a little version of one of the dogs that comes up and he basically just gets massacred in front of them. And of course they all freak out and run to the house. And from then on, it's just humans against these crazed dogs. They're all kind of German Shepherd-y or Malinois. I have a German Shepherd. Usually I'm very triggered if German Shepherds are being hurt in a movie. In this movie, it's so goofy on both sides that the killings of the CGI dogs are almost as entertaining as the killings of the humans in this movie. So I think you could almost find as much joy on the way that these dogs are killed. It sounds weird, and I'm coming from a dog lover point of view, but there are some points in this where the way the dogs are getting killed is so dumb and so funny. And the same thing with the humans. It's just they took their very meager special effects budget and they said, I want to have this thing where this dog leaps and does this thing. How do we make that happen? We'll make it happen. It'll look terrible, but we'll do it. Or we have two characters up in a cell tower and they're going to have to fight off these dogs that somehow can climb the side of a cell tower. How are we going to do that? Oh, I got an idea. And then they do it. And it's so goofy. You're getting the point here. If you go into if you go into this with the right mental attitude, I think you can have a good time. And if you guys know me, of any of the people on this show, I'm the person that goes into these movies with a very hard critical eye. I usually get really angry by these kind of movies. But I think what's the difference here is it just has a sense of stupid fun that worked. And I cannot recommend this movie to anybody in the sense of you'll blame me if it's not your cup of tea, because this is going to definitely, it's a dumb movie. Like I said, Sharknado is a great thing. If you can go into a Sharknado type of movie and have a good time, then I think that is a really great comparison. And I think you'll know what you're getting into. If you can't watch a Sharknado kind of movie with any kind of fun in your heart, because for you it's just too cheap and terrible, and for you it's just a terrible experience, do not watch this movie. This one just happened to hit me just about right. Once again, can I rate it as a good movie? No. I was going to originally rate it as a 1-star banger, but 1-star bangers are movies that are so bad they're funny, but also anger me that they're so bad. They're like so terrible. This movie is once more like a 3-star banger. And I think that's what I'm going to rate it. I'm going to rate this a 3-star banger. And that is, once again, in Eric's comparison, is that for the type of movie it isn't necessarily going to be an Oscar high-end movie for you, but for the type of movie it does what it does really well. And for this type of movie, this very low budget, very CGI, cheesy special effects, very campy kind of movie, this is a really good version of one of those movies, in my opinion. So I had a good time. I'm going to go 3-star banger for A Breed Apart. And I feel at this point, Greg and Eric might be surprised that I'm giving it such a positive spin. But I'm not going to spoil it. I almost feel like that's a funny thing to say about a movie like this. But I think that you could spoil it to the degree of some of the silly kills and attacks that go on in this movie. You want to experience firsthand because they're so dumb and so funny and so silly and so goofy. And I think that's 90% of the fun of this movie. All right. Once again, 3-star banger for A Breed Apart. Okay, I don't know what we have next week, so I can't pre-promote it for you. I can't. Our Breed Apart just left the room. So you might just think a ghost is back there, or you might have seen her tail. Anyway, I have to crawl back up into the attic for another week. I know we have the Patreon coming up soon for 2003. I know Greg has been soliciting members, especially Patreon members, but honestly, anyone, let us know what movie from 2003 you think we should be watching, and we'll be picking that, I think, either today or next week. We'll pick what movies we'll watch for 2003. Look forward to talking again soon, guys. Bye.